Hey, welcome back. In the previous video, we started to implement the control value accessor interface and already implemented the value synchronization from the model to the view and vice versa. In this video, we continue to do that and implement the synchronization of the touched status and disabled state. And also we will adjust the component in order to make it work with the on-push change detection strategy. So let's get started with the touched status synchronization. Currently, this control will always have the status ng untouched because we didn't implement the corresponding logic yet. I want to mark the component as touched when the user moves the focus away from the select component or when the drop-down panel is closed. To achieve that, I have to make the component focusable because by default custom tag elements, they are not focusable. So let's go to the code and make it focusable first. To make any element focusable, we have to add the tap index attribute to it, and its value should be 0 or greater. So let's introduce a new host binding for our component, which will attach the corresponding tap index attribute to the component host. And by default, it is going to be 0. And because I want to allow developers to configure it, I will also decorate it with input decorator. Awesome. It will make the component focusable, and it means that I can listen to the blur event on the component host. So let's create a dedicated listener. Here I'm going to use an already familiar host listener decorator that decorates a dedicated method that is responsible for marking the component as touched. In order to modify the model that it has to be marked as touched, we have to call the callback function provided by the register onTouched method. Likewise, we did it for the onChange. So let's also create a class property for it and slightly adjust its type because it is slightly different, right? Then we can assign this callback to the onTouched property like that, and let's go and call it everywhere where it is needed. Namely, we need to call it inside the blur event callback, but let's also additionally check if the component is not in the disabled state and that the drop-down panel is closed. This is how I define the touched state, but it is not something which is set into the stone, but so you can have your different opinion and define your own conditions. Yeah, feel free to do that. And also we have to mark it as touched when we close the panel. So let's update this method as well. And now if we go and check our feature in the browser, you can see that currently it has the ng untouched state, but when I focus on it and then immediately move the focus away, then it gets the touched status, which is really cool. Now let's handle the disabled state synchronization. So let's go back to the code and find the method setDisabledState, which is called when the form control model gets disabled or enabled. And here we just have to update the already existing disabled property with the value that was provided right here for this setDisabledState method. And that's actually it. So now we can try to test it. I will go and try to disable the form control model after some period of time, let's say after 3 seconds. All right, and now I can go to the browser, and after 3 seconds you will see nothing. Why? Everything is because on push change detection strategy. The thing is that the setDisabledState method isn't the event callback, and it is not a cause of the component input changes. So that's why changes cannot be automatically picked up by change detection. That's why we have to mark the component for check manually. For that, we have to inject the change detection ref inside the constructor. Here we go. And then I just have to call the mark4check method inside the setDisabledState method. Done. Now we can go and check if it works in the browser, and as you can see, it works great. Awesome. But before we finish this lesson, we have to adjust also other parts where the state can be changed but cannot be picked up by the change detection. And the first candidate to be updated is the write value method. So let's call mark4check method also here. But should we do it anywhere else? Well, let me show you something. Actually, nothing stops you from getting the reference to the select component via the viewChild decorator. And then you could use the component public API for opening the panel programmatically, just like this. However, if we go to the browser, we will not see the desired behavior and the panel will not be open. This is because I call this function as a regular class method and not as a handler of some host event like you can see right here. When it is invoked as a handler for some event, then Angular marks the component as dirty automatically, but if it is called as a regular method, then it will not be visible for Angular, and that's why we should also call the mark4check inside this method. And only now, if we go to the browser, we will see that the component behavior works properly. So it means that we have to check all our public methods and call the mark4check method everywhere where we change some property, like the close method, and same we have to do for the clear selection method, right? And by the way, because it can be called not as a click handler but also as a regular method, so let's make the event argument optional here. Here we go. Yeah, and then what else do we have public? The mark as touched method. So we have to update this method as well. I hope I forgot nothing, but okay, even if I forgot, I can fix it later in the later updates of this course. But for now, we are finally done, and let me just clean up some helper code from here, or I will rather comment it out so you could also play around with that, and if you find that I forgot something, then please let me know and I will fix that. And that's it for now, and yeah, let's move forward.